All right. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Women Wealth Wednesday. I am your host, Dr. Gladys, aka Coach Gladys. How you doing tonight? I know I'm always like a little bit tardy for the party, but you know what? It's only one me. But in all fairness to you, let me just adjust my microphone. I have all good intentions on being on time. It's just no excuse, to be honest with you. Just I'm having some lighting issues today, but overall, I'm excited to be here with you today because we are talking about a light-hearted topic, very light-hearted. And of course, if it wasn't about real estate investing, what could it be, right? Because that's my main thing. I love talking real estate investing. I think it's working now. And I love you just coming on here every week, just sharing with you the woes, the ebbs, the woes, the highs, the lows, and all the things in between when it comes to real estate investing. So, welcome. If you don't know who I am, again, She Invests Realty, the coach for She Rises Academy. You know, before we get started, I wanted to share with you that we completed our first group coaching cohort last week, a 10-week coaching program. First of all, this is the first time we've done it this way. We've always done it I've always done it with one-on-one coaching. But this time I decided to do things a little bit different and had offered group coaching. And I have to tell you, it was different for me, different in the sense that having all people in one room and having the different thought processes and just going through the entire curriculum was an experience that I had not experienced. When I coach one-on-one, it's more tailored to the individual. We talked so many different real estate strategies, from fixing and flipping to BRRR, short-term rentals, you name it, anything in between. And what I found, that going through it with different individuals, that everyone has their reasons for choosing what they choose, and that's what made it so interesting. No one fix and flip this particular. I hope you are going to join next cohort. We are taking a 2-week hiatus, which I hope you are looking forward to enjoying your holiday with your family as well. So our courses begin December 4th. And if you are on the fence and still not sure whether or not coaching is the right thing or mentorship is the right thing for you, I can tell you one thing. You can do it on your own, and you can go to YouTube University if you want to. But what I have discovered, that when you are in a community of not just people, but women, like-minded, supporting each other and being able to collaboratively come together to think tank through this process and partner with other people and have a guide, there is nothing better than knowing that you have someone you can lean into. I started out in coaching in a one-on-one setting as well, and I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am today, or even have as much knowledge and education as I do, if it wasn't for my coach, because he was able to really feed into me in where I didn't know everything and thought I knew a lot. I didn't know anything at all. So just a little public service announcement. But tonight, what are we talking about? Airbnb riches. We didn't discuss this at the academy. However, it's been on my mind for a very long time. I was talking to a former student, and the conversation came up, is short-term rental right for you? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it all makes sense depending on where you're at. It all makes sense depending on where you're looking. And I just wanted to have a conversation for us to break it down tonight, right? Does it make sense for you? So I want to explore the strategy with you and share some of the pros and some of the cons with it. As with everything else, if you know how to mitigate the risk, then you'll be able to manage through it. So imagine turning a spare property into a source of income that pays your mortgage or even replaces your salary, all while meaning travelers are all over the world just utilizing your space, because that's what Airbnb is, especially if you pick it in the right place. A former student of mine actually contacted me about 2 years ago and was thinking about getting into this space. And let me share with you, um, she is in the right place and had the right location for an Airbnb. She was in Virginia Beach. Now, you know what the slogan for Virginia Beach is, right? Virginia is for lovers. Literally 2 or 3 walking blocks from Virginia Beach. Not only did this former student find an Airbnb, she found a 2-family house where she lived on one side and Airbnb the other side. So when I tell you that short-term rentals is like that promise to free yourself from that part-time job, that's what it has, and it has done for her, and it can do for you as well. So I want to dig into it because there's some pitfalls when we talk about short-term rentals. It's all not gravy. If you pick the wrong location, if you pick an area that has regulatory challenges, that can be a nightmare for you. But you know what? I want to start out by giving you some pros, right? Because there are lots of pros to Airbnb as well as cons. So it's a short lesson tonight. So stick and stay. And it'll be about 3 or 4 points before we move on into some of the cons. But what I want to share with you when it comes to Airbnbs, number one, it has a potential for higher income versus the versus the standard rental income. Now, the reason is because, you have one charge. So let's take it a single family home that may have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Let's just start there. And for the sake of argument, we'll say that, that long-term rental, you sign a 12-year lease, someone rents it from you. And this is really, truly hypothetical because no one's going to rent a house at that price, especially not where I'm at in South Jersey, for $1,500 a month. But I'm giving you an example so that you can understand the magnitude of how much you can really make. So it doesn't matter what the rent amount is. What you want to understand is the concept behind it. The rent amount can be $3,000, $2,000, $5,000, but know that you will always make more with an Airbnb. Okay, so if a long-term rental needs about $1,500 a month, and the same property might earn you between $2,500 to $3,000 a month on an Airbnb during peak season. Now, the reason why I use the word peak season is because Airbnbs have the tendency to have peaks and valleys, right? Especially the example that I'm sharing with you in Virginia Beach, right? It's higher, of course, in the summer. So peak season can run from April all the way through September. And those months is higher because, of course, summertime on the East Coast is when people tend to vacation. But then you also have the opportunity for summer weddings, and there are other usages of your short-term rental. It's just not Airbnb. But when you are using it for the purposes of Airbnb and then adding other ancillary income to it, then by all means you will be able to increase the value of what you are bringing in on a monthly basis, regardless if it's just Airbnb and using other ancillary income versus just having a single tenant renting it out from you $1,200 a month, because you're diversifying the number of days it is being rented. So out of a 30-day, maybe you have an occupancy of 75 to 80%. And even here in New Jersey, Jersey Shore, from April, or I can safely say from May through September, it's like 100% occupancy. A lot of Airbnbs are booked all summer long. And if you are an owner of a property here in the South Jersey area near the shore, then you want to block out those days so that you can use it for yourself as well. And of course, when I say peak season, we also have to talk about peak months where Memorial Day is very high. I mean, their rates practically triple when you're talking about a per day for Memorial Day, of course, July 4th, and of course, Labor Days. Those 3 holidays during the summer, you can cash cow. And basically, even if you're vacant for the other 20 or 25% of the time and have that other ancillary income, it is exponentially much more than you would get if you just rent it out to one person. So that is definitely the potential for a higher income, right? The flexibility, that's also very important. Let's talk about the flexibility. I mean, you can block off those dates, like I told you, for your own personal use during those holiday seasons. But if you're not going to use it, then you should triple your income because of the fact that you are at a peak holiday. The East Coast is big on that because we really don't have a lot of hot days and we go ballistic June, July, and August. All right, but it's also great for investors who want hands-on management in order for them to be able to use the property themselves occasionally. So that's the flexibility of it. The third thing is to diversify your occupancy, right? With multiple short stays, you are relying not on just a single tenant. I already talked to you about that. If one guest cancels, you can always rebook. Now, when you have a Airbnb for a 3-bedroom home, for example, you can either charge per room, charge per group. You know, there's a lot of girlfriends night out that people use it for. There's also bachelor parties that people use it for. So the ancillary income is there. So just because you have a booking over a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, doesn't mean that you can't rent it out, say, to a traveling nurse Sunday through Thursday. So there are so many usages and so many ways to make money with an Airbnb that if you are in the right location and have the right type of property, you will practically have no vacancies. I mean, seriously. All right. So when we talk about the diversification of our occupancy, that is exactly what I'm talking about. So you don't have to rely on just that one tenant that tells you, well, I lost my job and I don't know when I'm going to be able to pay my rent, or I'm a little behind, something happened. You don't have to deal with those type of excuses because you are renting out per day. Okay. Now you may not cash cow clear all of that money, but once you do it properly, you will start to realize just how much you want to rinse and repeat this over and over and over. And of course, one of the other perks is, meeting different people. I mean, if you are the one managing your own property, then by all means, if that's the only property you have and you're a people person, you can always, meet different people, learning different cultures, experiences. You may even want to use your Airbnb as an exchange for international students if you are in an area that's more college friendly. So they have exchange students coming from different countries and they have their own cultural ways. They may not want to live on a dorm, especially grad students. I know when I went to college, undergrad, I had roommates that were from Africa and we shared a house together. So, and one was from England. So I got to learn the culture as well. And then one semester I had a roommate who was Jewish. So it gave me a great cultural experience. So if this is like your personality and you don't mind meeting people, expand your horizons is what I'm saying. Don't just limit yourself. When you think of where you want to place your Airbnb, think of it more globally and not from a domestic perspective. Don't limit yourself to, oh, this is a good business area, so I want to put it here. Think of how you can expand your money outside of the US because international travel is very, very big. All right, those are your pros. Those are your pros. Now, of course, with every pro, there are cons. So let's talk about some of the cons. Higher management effort. That's really short-term rentals. They need constant attention, bookings, guest communications, cleaning, and maintenance. If you are self-managing, I don't self-manage. That 10% that you pay from your revenue is well worth that. But if you are just starting out and you are still trying to test out these muddy waters and you're doing it yourself, these are some of the cons that you may have to think about and consider. Okay. One host I know spends nearly 10 hours a week coordinating check-ins and turnovers. And the reason is because she's actually not Airbnb a house. She's Airbnb rooms in her house. I know that you probably think, are you kidding me? That really happens. Isn't that house hacking? Similar. It could be like house hacking, but it really isn't. House hacking is when you rent out that room, kind of like long-term rentals where that person is living in your house for a 6-month, 9-month, 12-month period, and you may have a lease agreement with them. You can Airbnb a room in your house. People do it. I mean, it works well for a lot of people that are near hospitals. It works well for people that are near military Air Force bases. So those all happen. But look, got to coordinate that, got to do that. So to me, that's a lot of management. And I personally wouldn't want to do it. But you know what? If you're in it for the hustle, you're in it for the grind, then yes, I say go for it. I just prefer to be hands off because I have other priorities that are much more important to me. Number two, the variable income. So the income, unlike a steady long-term lease, incomes fluctuate with seasonality, right? I told you about the peak season, tourism trends and economic shifts. But again, if you're thinking outside the box, then you will have already prepared yourself for that ancillary income that we talked about. I know that, I talked about April through September, but during those other down months, here's a couple of ideas that may have passed you by during the fourth quarter. Look, you can use it for bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. You can rent it out to people that are planning hosting Thanksgiving as an overflow in their home. That is amazing. I mean, I'm giving you ideas tonight, so you're welcome. But seriously, this is an opportunity. Like I have hosted in the past in my house, and if there was an Airbnb nearby and there were people traveling that are far, I would offer that up as an opportunity for them to stay because I'm just that picky. I don't have to have people in my house all the time, but it is an opportunity for you to have guests, or better yet, maybe you are hosting this year's Thanksgiving and your home isn't big enough to host the number of people you can, so you can find a whole house and rent it out. I mean, and use that space for Airbnb. So that's another idea for you during that time. Some people may have Christmas parties and gal friends and Valentine's Day. These are all things that you can use for ancillary if you find that you've fallen below your threshold. You want to advertise and be able to stay competitive with your competitors as you are in this seasonality and dealing with the tourism trends. Okay, so during those off peak months, it may hurt your cash flow if you are not prepared for it. But giving you the ideas that I'm sharing with you tonight, then by all means, you should be more than prepared to handle just one unit. Okay. Now, another thing is that the cost can be surprising. The cleaning fees, the utilities, the insurance and supplies, they all add up quickly. But you are into investment, you must plan properly. So therefore, do not be surprised by some of the things that come towards you. You are into risk management. I always share with students and mentees, listen, always anticipate what challenges you'll face, so therefore you can mitigate that risk. Don't be alarmed and don't be surprised, and don't have a meltdown. Just anticipate. Of course, short-term rent management companies often charge a fee somewhere 15 to 25% of your rental revenue. I mean, that's all what I call negotiable. I mean, I happen to know a company that does it for 10% and as high as 15%. 25 is on a high end, but again, depending on where you're at, it may be a little bit higher because you have no vacancies and you're turning it over more frequently. That's a great problem to have. So maybe you can afford that, but I like to keep it between 10 and 15%. One of the other challenges that many people don't think about is, of course, the regulations, right? The restrictions and regulations. If you rent or buy an Airbnb in a wrong location, you're dealing with headaches after headaches after. So how do we mitigate some of that? Cities may restrict short-term rentals, especially if you don't have the right permit. They may limit your occupancy. They may enforce higher taxes on you. Hotels have higher taxes. They may consider it to be a tax, and therefore there's an extra 15% tax that you may have to pay. Look into it, okay? And sometimes you could be fined thousands of dollars if you operate without the proper registration. Why would you want to risk that? Like, seriously, take it into consideration that this is something that you want to manage and manage it well and do the right thing. Don't take any shortcuts. I mean, you know what happens when you take shortcuts, you get cut short. So just be diligent and just be cognizant of what you are doing with this. Okay. So let me share one more thing with you. Of course, you have the wear and tear. You have to, in order for you to get the kind of income that you're looking for from an Airbnb, you want to make sure, that it's not looking like it's been through it. So More frequent guests can lead to a faster depreciation of your furniture, your appliances, and of course, your general property in general. So make sure you're inspecting it, not just to clean up, but just inspect it. Make sure that, things are not broken and torn up, and, they're being replaced as quickly as they are. So that way you can keep your occupancy rate up. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you like the idea of an active income stream, or do you prefer passive or stable income? Just answer that question for me, because that's something you want to ask yourself if you are considering getting into this. I happen to like a passive income stream because I find that you do something once and you get paid over and over and over. In active income, you have to continue to do it in order for you to get that income. I find that having an Airbnb is what I call passive income, especially when you're not managing it yourself. You set it up once and then you just keep marketing and advertising. So to me, that's passive income. I'm actually not doing anything. If I don't show up, I'm still getting paid as long as I have bookings, right? That's the whole purpose of a passive income. It doesn't need your effort. It just needs your attention. So that's the difference between your active and your passive. But let me give you a couple of questions for self-assessment. So when it comes to self-assessment, whether you are considering a short-term rental or not, these are some of the things you want to ask yourself. Hands-on versus hands-off. Short-term rentals require engagement, right? So that's one thing. What is your risk tolerance? Can you handle a fluctuating revenue? These are all questions that you want to ask yourself. And of course, what are the local regulations and where you are considering it? Make sure you allow yourself to do the research to make sure that you are getting into the right target area. I love oceanfront areas. I love vacation areas. I love business areas. But here's the thing with business areas. They may be busy Monday to Friday, but then when it comes to, or maybe Sunday to Thursday, then when it comes to the weekend, then what are you going to do? You don't have the kind of traffic that you're looking for. So, I love areas that offer a lot of hospitality. And so to me, Airbnb is right up there from the days when, and it's still kind of popular depending on where you go, bed and breakfast, right? Those are very popular. If you have a great location, then you will always have that kind of income to be available. But let me give you some case studies so you can give food for thought. One of the case studies I want to share with you, of course, all my case studies come from previous experience and also people I've worked with. So I want you to hear me out on this one. The investor turned a condo into an Airbnb and doubled the rental income, but spent 12 hours a week managing the bookings. Now, is that a good problem or a bad problem? Depends on who you are. Okay. Me personally, 12 hours a week managing, that's a lot. But here's some of the solutions that I offer and how do you manage that and mitigate the risk. Number one, you hire a property manager. I said to you, you have to work smarter and not harder. If you use a professional to manage your short-term rental, then the management service itself is well worth the fee that they charge you. It is not going to take that much out of your gross and make your net in balance. It is an opportunity for you to get into other opportunities besides managing one. 12 hours is a lot of hours. You can do a whole nother investment with that. Okay. Let them handle the guest communications and the cleaning and the turnover. Okay. You should automate your pricing and your bookings. I want you to use tools like Guesty and Logify or Airbnb's smart pricing. These are all systems that you put into place. If you are managing this manually, then you are already behind the eight ball. This is all about systematizing things to make your life easier. Like, why would you make your life even more complicated? Implement systems into standardize your check-in instructions. I mean, like, it should all be automated. There's no reason why you should not be automated. Pre-stock your essentials. All your essentials should be on site. If it's a apartment, then there's a lock closet that you keep all your other essentials in there. If it's a standalone house, then what you should be doing is having a storage unit on site where you can keep all those extras in it, extra sheets, extra cleaning supply, extra everything. So all you have to do is throw it into the wash. and replenish it. But again, if you have a house manager, that person is going to be managing that inventory for you. You should have a checklist, and make sure that when you check that checklist, make sure that everything that you have put on site, just keep track of it. Okay, just keep track of it. By putting this away, it is giving you more time to do other things that are much more valuable, and that will help you reduce your hands on. Also, short-term rentals can be highly profitable without burning you out if you put those proper systems in place, and you have the right support. So therefore, you don't have to. Remember the three things I shared with you: automate pricing and bookings, Guesty, Logify, or Airbnb Smart Pricing. These are all great, so you can remain competitive to see exactly what your competitors are doing and make sure that you are within that range and not price yourself out of the community because you are too high, and you don't want to be too low, because perception is everything. If people are looking at an Airbnb that's 160 at night and you're 89, they're going to wonder, like, why are you so much lower? The first thing they're going to think of your place is that, oh, it must be a Roach Motel, but the pictures look nice, right? So don't undercut and underestimate your price just so you can have bookings. You want to remain competitive. That's why Guesty, Logify, or Airbnb Smart Pricing is the way for you to think about it. The second case study I want to share with you is even more interesting. So this investor bought a property in a restricted city, lost money due to fines, and had to pivot to a long-term rental. Long-term rental is definitely one way for you to pivot, but it's not the only way for you to pivot. So here's what I want you to do before we pivot. I want you to do your research thoroughly before you even purchase it. Check your local short-term rental laws. I mean, what are their permit requirements and what are their zoning requirements? Make sure that it qualifies for that. If the whole neighborhood doesn't have any Airbnbs and you like the house and you think it's a good neighborhood, it doesn't matter. It may not be the right investment for that. So you may have to consider just, renting it out. Do your homework first. Don't be impulsive in your decisions, because impulsivity leads to mistakes. I want you to engage with professionals, right? Like, before you even consider going into this property as a short-term rental, then what you want to do is meet with your real estate attorney. You should have one on your team. I always talk about making sure you have a real estate attorney on your team, or a local property management company, and ask them to help you navigate some of the regulatory hurdles that you may be facing. Many people, for a fee, are willing to sit down and have that conversation for you. Now, if you think that fee is too high, imagine being shut down thinking you're about to make a couple $1,000s a month. The fee is never too high for consultation. I am a big proponent of risk management as opposed to impulsive management, because you can't manage impulses, but risk we mitigate. You're welcome. All right, so contingency planning. Always have a backup plan. Converting into a long-term rental, yes, it's definitely, or using the property as a hybrid short-term rental or long-term use. So this is a very good example. In Atlantic City, they built a university. I can't think of the name. Is it Stafford? Don't quote me. I can't remember the university, but it is in the Atlantic City area. That is an opportunity that we looked at, and it makes a lot of sense, because during the college period, right, the September through, actually it's August through May, during that period, you can actually use it as a more dorm type of situation. And during the summer, when the students aren't there, then you turn it into a more Airbnb rental. That makes sense in that particular location here in South Jersey, because of the location. And this is literally blocks away from the beach. So it is perfect. Because you're able to get the best of both worlds. That's one way. And of course, here's the thing: regulatory risks are manageable with research and planning and flexibility, turning potential setbacks into learning opportunities. Don't just, oh my goodness, I messed up. What am I going to do now? No, no, no. There's always an exit strategy. And that's why I love real estate. You can mitigate these risks. And of course, are you always going to win? I just gave you two mistakes that two investors did, and these are seasoned investors. However, there's always a way to pivot from it. Avoiding a location is the first way, but if you find yourself in that situation, then of course having that backup is always a best strategy for you to make sense. All right. So let me get a short temperature check from everyone. Which type of investor do you see for yourself? Do you see yourself as a hands-on short-term rental manager, or long-term passive landlord, or even a hybrid? So speaking for myself, I like a hybrid method. I tend to shy away from just being a passive landlord too, because it's really starting to impact your pocketbook just being a passive landlord, unless you are looking at multiple units. When it comes to single units, I think there's a much more better way to profit from using it just as one short-term passive landlording. You can make short-term rentals, Airbnb, much more, because think of you collecting money during a 30-day period over a period of time, as opposed to waiting for the end of the month for one paycheck. It makes a big difference to me. I just want to do a quick check-in. I'm offering you a checklist as well. So if you hit checklist in the replay, or even hit checklist if you're watching me live, I created a checklist for you that you will find extremely helpful, and it will help you understand what to look for and break down for Airbnbs or your short-term rentals. I mean, in this checklist, it has all the little things. Let me see if I can pull it up on this side. Yeah, this checklist is robust enough for you to understand, short-term rentals, legal compliance, regulatory, all the things that you may be thinking of. So just hit checklist in this replay, or either hit me up live and I will get it to you. And if you want to learn more about tips and tricks and risk tolerance and finance and cash flow calculations, then what you want to do is follow up with me. I said to you at the beginning that we are starting our cohort number 2, which is December 4th. That will run for 10 weeks, but because it has those holidays in between it, you'll have your breaks. This is your opportunity to not just hang out with me on Women Wealth Wednesday, but it's your opportunity for you to get up close and personal with myself and other learners that are really here to get the basics and get the foundations of it. And that is what She Rises Academy is for. You will be joining a cohort of women just like yourself who are interested in learning so much more about real estate investing. And when you are in the right room with the right people at the right time, you're going to find yourself even more excited, because you're able to share collaboratively on all the different things that we are doing in this environment. I love teaching, I love training, but more importantly, I love watching women succeed. And I think that you are ready to take it to the next level. If you are, then you want to schedule a one-on-one with me at coachgladys.com and see if we are a good fit for each other. If we're not, great, then you would have get some advice in that 45-minute session strategy. If I'm not the one for you, then I still think that mentorship is a great opportunity for you to clearly get you some help. Too many times you sitting on the sideline trying to figure out, how do I do this? You don't have to. You don't have to do it alone either. But if I'm not a fit for you, I'm now learning that there are many choices. And I'm glad that you have chosen to spend your Wednesdays with me. So being that I'm excited about it, I'm going to wish you a happy holiday in advance, because I will not be here next week. I'm taking some time off, but I will be there the following week. And so that's giving you an opportunity to catch up with me after that. Have a great evening. I've enjoyed you very much. Have a good